Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with our series on understanding the wudu, or understanding ablution. And today, what we're going to do is speak about things that do or do not invalidate your wudu, or things that do or do not break your wudu. And as I said earlier, you're going to learn some things today that you didn't know before. Okay, because a lot of Muslims think that certain things invalidate the wudu when they really do not. So there are some things I can guarantee that each and every one of you are going to learn today that you didn't know before about what breaks the wudu. And again, I want you guys to note the following. It is strongly encouraged to perform the wudu the way the Prophet did, which means completing the sunans of the wudu as well as the pillars. To deliberately, intentionally not perform the sunans, it does not invalidate your wudu, but it will cause you to lose out on reward. Because again, the more you do like the Prophet, the more reward that this brings you. So to deliberately, intentionally, for example, not rinse out the mouth, or to deliberately, intentionally not rinse out the nose, you're just cheating yourself out of some rewards. And again, on the day of judgment, you're going to be wishing that you had done those things, because you're going to need all the good deeds you can get to cross that Sirat bridge. You might be one deed short, and that one deed could have come if you had just performed the sunans of the wudu. So again, not doing the sunans does not invalidate your wudu, but it will cause you to lose out on some blessings. So you do want to try to do them. And so now what I want to do is speak about the things that will indeed invalidate your wudu. And the first three things that will definitely invalidate your wudu is to have excretion from the penis, the vagina, or the anus. This means urinating, defecating, or passing wind. Those are the things that without a doubt break your wudu. Listen to what Allah says in the Quran and the interpretation of the meaning. Or one of you comes from relieving himself. When Allah mentions that verse, he's talking about how we have to purify ourselves before we pray. After you answer the call of nature, you have to purify yourselves, before you stand before Allah. So urinating or defecating, answering the call of nature, breaks the wudu. So if you answer the call of nature sometime between dhuhr and asr, you have to make a fresh wudu. Also from the sunnah about passing gas. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah does not accept the prayer of a person who has released gas until he makes a new ablution. And when the Prophet said that, someone said, what does the Prophet mean by releasing gas? He said that's the wind that you can hear, or smell that comes from your anus. Okay, so again, passing gas. Passing gas definitely breaks the wudu if you can hear it or smell it. And we have the hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if one of you finds a disturbance in his stomach and you're not sure if you've passed gas or not, you should not leave the mosque unless you hear something or smell it. So even if you're unsure, we talked about this before, you might be sitting here and you don't know if you passed when or not, but your stomach is churning around. Well, as long as you don't smell that smell, or as long as you don't hear that sound, consider yourself to still have a wudu. But if you smell the smell that comes from passing gas or hear that noise that comes from passing gas, go make a fresh wudu before you pray. Okay? So those are the proofs of that. But now what I want to do is answer the question that Sister Khadijah asked the other day. And this is a question that people ask all the time. What about semen or prostatic discharge? I want you to pay attention, Khadijah, and everybody else who had this question. When it comes to semen, this breaks your wudu, guys. And not only must you make a fresh wudu before you pray, but you got to also take a bath. You have to take a bath too. And I want you guys to read what I put here in blue. Semen results from having sexual intercourse. And it also results from having a wet dream. So I want you guys to pay attention, because after class, I don't want to hear no crazy questions from y'all. Because every time I teach this, boy, I get the most ridiculous questions on earth that are embarrassing for me to answer, because we are just simple minded. Pay attention. The semen comes as a result of you having intercourse with your wife or your husband. After you and your wife have intercourse, you have to take a ghusl. Okay? If you did not have intercourse with your wife or your husband and you see fluid coming out of your private part, then that's not the semen. Is that clear? The Khadijah and everybody else. If you see clear fluid coming out of your private part and it did not happen as a result of you having sex, or it did not happen as a result of you having a wet dream, then it's not semen. It's considered prostatic discharge. Prostatic discharge is the clear fluid that comes out of your private part when you have not had sex. In that case, you don't have to take a bath. In that case, you simply wash the discharge away and then make wudu before you pray. That's it. Does everybody understand? Let me repeat. Semen comes as a result of you having sexual intercourse with your wife or your husband. In that case, when you're done, go take a bath. It also occurs as a result of you waking up from a wet dream. In that case, go take a bath. But prostatic discharge is the clear fluid that comes out of your private part any time of the day. It comes through natural sources. You happen to look down and notice that you got some fluid, some liquid coming out of your private part. You have not had sex with nobody. It's just there. Oh my, look here. In that case, just wash it off. And then when it's time to pray, make wudu. That's for women and men. So you sisters, you go to use the bathroom. You have not had sex or anything, but you happen to notice, oh my, I got discharge coming out of my underwear. Okay, well, don't worry about it. Take a washcloth, wash the discharge, and then and then change your underwear. I hope everybody should know to change your underwear. Take your underwear off, put a fresh, clean pair of panties on, and make wudu before you pray. I hope that's clear. I can't break that down in any other plain, simple English terms without causing embarrassment to anyone. So please, this should be clear to everyone listening. Okay? Now, what about sleep? This is a lot of stuff that this is a question that many Muslims, don't know the correct answer to. How many of you have been told that sleeping breaks the wudu? Well, that's not true. It depends on whether or not you were in a deep sleep. And that's from what, listen to what Anas, who was one of the companions, said. He said the companions of the Prophet were waiting for the delayed night prayer until their heads began to bob up and down from their drowsiness. They would then wake up and pray without making wudu. Why? Because they were not in a deep sleep. They were in a sitting position. And by the way, this hadith is further proof that delaying the prayer has no impact on your kushua either. Like I told you guys, the prophet used to delay the night prayer. He would delay Isha to 12 o'clock. Okay, so sometimes the companions would sit there waiting. They would sit there in the mosque and they would begin to nod off. But when the adhan was called, they got up and prayed because they were not in a deep sleep. Okay, but to lay down on the ground and get comfortable and go to sleep, this does break your wudu. Is that clear? Look at the picture. I like this picture. Let me tell you why I chose this picture. See this man? He's sitting up in a chair. He's nodding off. He's nodding off. But he's still conscious. He's slipping in and out of nodding off, but he's conscious of where he is. His wudu is not broken. But if he were to lay down on the desk, put a blanket on, and go to sleep, then in that case he'd have to make a fresh wudu over. So again, I hope this is clear to you. If a person is nodding off in a sitting position, nodding off, it does not impact the wudu. But to go into a deep sleep where you become unconscious and unaware, then that does break the wudu. And that's what we talk about. That falls in the category of losing consciousness. Look at this man here. He's lying in the bed asleep. This dude got to make a wudu. This brother was sitting up in a chair. Different. This brother in his chair is conscious. He's still aware, even though he's nodding off. This one is out cold. To lose consciousness, this will invalidate your wudu regardless of whether it happened as a result of you going to sleep or fainting or mental illness or even medicine. Sometimes we take certain medicines, it knocks us out, it makes us go out unconscious. That invalidates your wudu. So it does, it also, guys, it does not matter if you were unconscious for a short time or a long time. The simple fact that you were knocked out, unaware of what's going on, even if you're sitting up in a chair, because let me tell you, some people get drunk. And you shouldn't be drinking. We already know this is a sin, but believe it or not, we do got people who drink and they claim to be Muslim and they claim to pray. You sat there drunk and you were unconscious and knocked out in a chair. And you think you're going to get up and approach your prayers now? Whenever a person is unconscious, that means you're not aware of your surroundings. You're not aware of what's going on. This is being unconscious. That does break your wudu. And all the scholars of Islam are in agreement on that. Does everybody understand that? So the difference is being in a deep sleep or being nodding off. The difference is being conscious or unconscious. That's what impacts the wudu. And that brings us to the next point, which a lot of Muslims are unsure about. What about touching the private parts? A lot of Muslims say, "Dear Sister Layla, I took a ghusl and with the intention of praying. Do I have to make wudu? Even though when I went to dry off, I used a towel. I put the towel as a barrier between me and my private parts. Do I have to make a wudu? No. Because first of all, ghusl is the big wudu. You did immerse your body in water. Number two, you had the intention of making salat. And number three, you did not touch the private part without a barrier. So that's the key. The key is Only if you touch your private part, and your private part means your vagina or your penis, guys. Your vagina or your penis. Only if you touch that area without a barrier between your hand. And it doesn't matter if it's your sexual organ or somebody else's. That's the word, the sexual organ, being penis, vagina. So as long as you're not touching another adult's private part or your private part without a barrier, it does not break, your wudu. And that's based on the following hadith. The Prophet said, whoever touches his sexual organ cannot pray until he makes wudu. Whoever touches his sexual organ without any covering between the hand and the organ must perform wudu. So there you can see the Prophet is clear. He's clear. He said, so if you got, like, for example, you took a shower, you're drying off with your towel, so you dry your private part, your sexual organ, but you're using the towel. Your hand is not touching it. Your wudu is still valid. Does everybody understand? But if I touch it with my hand without a barrier, you have to make another one. And it's the same goes for touching another adult. Say, for example, you work in the health industry. You're a nurse or you're a care provider. You have to give a bed bath to a client. If if you don't touch that client's private part with your bare hand, your wudu is still good. But if you end up touching his private part without a barrier, then you need to make a fresh wudu when it's time for you to pray. And again, I hope this is clear. You can always refer back to this PowerPoint. Okay? Also, I want to stress the following. Touching a woman, whether she's a mahram or not, does not impact your wudu. And I have to put this in here because you'd be surprised how many emails I get from men saying, "Dear Sister Layla, I went to the grocery store, and as I handed the money to the woman who was the checkout lady, my hand accidentally touched hers. So do I have to go home and make a wudu?" No, that is ridiculous. Women are not dogs. We are not animals. We are human beings just like men are. And I put these hadiths here for you guys to ponder because we get sick and tired of hearing people lie on the Prophet by saying things like this is not true. Look at the first hadith. First of all, the Prophet kissed his wife Aisha while he was fasting. And he told her kissing does not invalidate the wudu, nor does it break your fast. And we'll talk about this again during Ramadan, because these same men think you can't touch your wife when you fast either. So here the Prophet told us that kissing your wife does not invalidate your wudu. Okay? Also, in another hadith, Aisha tells us that one night she woke up and found the Prophet gone. So she went to see where he was. And she put her hand on the bottom of his feet while he was praying and asked Allah's forgiveness, hoping that the Prophet was not angry at her. Okay? So here we can see that even though she touched the bottom of the Prophet's foot, he still continued to pray. She did not break his prayer or break his wudu because she touched him. And then we have other hadiths from other wives who said the Prophet used to kiss them and then pray without making a wudu. And also another hadith where Aisha said that she used to serve as the Prophet's sutra. She would sleep in front of the Prophet and with her feet in the direction of the Qibla to him. And when he prostrated, he would touch her so she could move her feet. Whenever he would prostrate, he would touch her leg for her to move her legs forward so he could prostrate. So you can see that touching a woman does not impact your prayer or your wudu at all. These men who tell you this, I don't know where they get it from. These are men who got a problem with women. They probably hate women. They think women are celestial beings or jinns. I don't know what their problem is, but women and men are human beings. Just like touching a man does not invalidate your wudu. Touching a woman doesn't invalidate either. So the same with the doctor. Say you're a doctor looking at you, waiting on checking a woman's blood pressure or checking her heartbeat or whatnot, and you have to touch her. That does not break your fast. Or I mean your fast nor your wudu. You don't have to go home and take no ghusl. You don't have to go and take no wudu or any of that. This is all nonsense. Okay? And what about this? Bleeding. How many of you were told that if you're bleeding, it breaks your wudu? Well, blood or bleeding does not impact your wudu unless you are a woman and your period comes. A woman cannot pray on her period. So if you're a woman and you go to the bathroom and realize your period has begun, then you cannot pray, you cannot fast, and your wudu and all that, you're considered impure. Okay? But having a nosebleed or a wound that or a scratch that's bleeding does not impact your wudu or your prayer at all. In fact, we have the hadith whereas Ibn Umar, he squeezed a pimple until it bled, but he did not renew his wudu. Also, Umar himself, for those of you who don't know, when Umar was murdered, he was praying. He was performing the Fajr prayer when he was stabbed over 50 times. But he continued to pray, even though the Persian Faruz who stabbed him was stabbing him. He continued to pray, even though the blood was flowing from him. Okay. Also, another companion, Ibad ibn Bashir, he was hit with an arrow while he prayed, but he continued with his prayer. So again, blood does not break the prayer either, unless you are a woman who finds yourself on your menses. What about this? What if a man touches a woman on her menses? That still does not impact his wudu. So if your wife is on her period and you touch her, or your daughter's on her period and you touch her, it has no impact on your wudu either. It's just that it's impacted her, not you. Okay? And finally, what about vomit? This is another one that we get a lot of questions about. Does vomiting or throwing up invalidate the wudu? Well, guess what? There is nothing from the Quran nor from the authentic hadith that mentions anything about vomiting invalidating your wudu. Y'all hear that? And it doesn't matter if you threw up a lot or a little. It has no impact on your wudu at all. So don't use that as an excuse. Oh, I threw up. So what? Get a life. Your wudu is still valid. And even with the fasting, we're going to talk about fasting too. When Ramadan begins, vomiting doesn't break your fast either, guys, unless you deliberately do it. Okay, so these are some of the common questions that people ask about wudu invalidation. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is speak about instances in which your wudu may or may not be invalidated. In other words, you may find yourself in certain situations or certain instances. Will these situations or these instances invalidate my wudu? We'll talk about that tomorrow. So we'll stop right here for today. I want you guys to memorize the meaning of these hadiths and be able to pull them up from your heart and memory tomorrow. We'll stop right here. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers.